Big trains. Making bold statements. The 484 Northern sure does stick out from the rest. From freight-carrying Northerns all the way to modern excursion stars, the Northern has been making an impact for decades. Hey guys, Sid from Sid's Trains here, and welcome back to another video here on the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the 484 Northern type steam engine. For those of you who do not know, the Northern is a 484. That means it has 4 wheels on the front pilot truck, 8 drive wheels, and then another 4 wheels on the trailing truck. And there are tons of different kinds of Northerns. But I noticed something after looking at the various kinds that I have in my collection. They're all very big engines. Obviously, there's tons of different kinds of steam engines. There's Hudsons, there's Pacifics, there's Northerns, there's Texas types, there's then articulateds, then there's duplex style. But I noticed of the generic rigid frame steam engines, the Northerns are very large. They have a lot of wheels, and there were tons of them in real life, which just shows that they were very beneficial to the railroads. But something else is they all really make a statement. There's something bold and interesting about them. They all really represent railroading and were meant to kind of stick out. I look at all these Northerns that I have, and they have smoke deflectors, streamlined casing, really aggressive front ends, just these engines were meant to look really interesting, and whether that was by design or not, they just really stand out from others. Other steam engines like Hudsons, I love Hudson type steam engines, but when you look at them, they're just like, well, that's a steam engine. Like a New York Central Hudson is just a black steam engine. It's very generic looking. But you look at these Northerns, and they're all different, and they all stick out from the rest of the engines that those railroads have. A great example of this is the Queen of Steam, or the Norfolk and Western's 611 J-Class that is now a excursion star in modern railroading. And speaking of 611, I'd just like to say thank you to a fan of the channel, Robert Campbell, for getting me this Norfolk and Western J-Class t-shirt. He got me this at the York Train Show, and it's just really cool. Thank you, Bob, for getting me this. This is an awesome little gift to me. But speaking of 611, sitting right next to me, 611 is a streamlined Northern. It's very interesting looking. There aren't really any other engines that look like 611 or just any of the Norfolk and Western J-Class style of Northerns. There is another version of the Norfolk and Western J-Class, that being the Unshrouded J. The Unshrouded J is a kind of famous engine in a way in the modeling world now. I made a video on this engine about a year ago or so, and then after that it just seemed to take off. Tons of other people started buying them, people were interested in them, and that's really cool to see. And I love my MTH Norfolk and Western J in the unshrouded style of J-Class. It's a very neat looking engine. And both the N&W 611 and then my N&W Unshrouded J are both favorites in my collection. If you guys watched my last video on the York Train Show, you would have seen that I got a MTH Chesapeake Ohio Greenbrier, which is another type of Northern. This is the Chesapeake Ohio's version of the Northern. Again, these are very interesting looking engines. I think these are the most aggressive looking Northerns. I think the Chesapeake and Ohio engines like the Greenbrier and the Kanawas with that low mounted headlight is such a cool looking thing. They're so aggressive looking, very much a kind of freight looking engine, but the Greenbrier, specifically number 614, did pull excursion service and the Greenbriers pulled passenger trains. And like many other Northerns, a Greenbrier still exists in real life today, that being 614, which is now in a green paint scheme. But I really like this version that I have from MTH. Moving away from the East Coast, we go all the way to the West Coast. And who can forget the 484 Northern that the Union Pacific has, the FEF Northern, and specifically number 844. I personally have this version here, which is 8444, which is the 844 around the 80s and 90s when it was renumbered due to some other engines on the roster having the same number. And it's a very cool engine. I got this engine a long time ago. And I love the way this engine looks with all this pinstriping and these elephant ears. I call them elephant ears, or they're smoke deflectors. They just add so much height and character to the front of the engine. And something different that this engine has that many other engines don't have is an emergency light on the front. That red light above the headlight is an emergency light for when the train goes into emergency stop. And it's such a neat feature. And I really like the way it looks on this engine. One of my favorite Northerns is the Milwaukee Road S3. This engine in model form is such a cool engine. Lionel introduced this engine around 2011, and it was good enough to be Vision Line. It was a brand new tooling, had amazing sounds, and then it introduced a new smoke feature, that being the cylinder steam smoke effect, where when you start moving the engine, steam shoots out of the cylinders. Such a cool feature, and just adds so much animation to the movement of this engine. Obviously the sounds and the lights and just the way this engine looks is already amazing. You could take away the cylinder steam smoke effect and this would still be an amazing engine. But that feature just adds so much character to the way this engine runs. And then behind it are gorgeous passenger cars that Lionel produced for this engine. I love this set all put together. Talk about an amazing combo. Here we have the New York Central's Niagara. This was their version of the 484 Northern, and what a aggressive and bold looking engine. That's the title of this video, is Big and Bold Steam Engines, and the Niagara truly was a really powerful engine, and it truly makes a statement when you look at it. Those smoke deflectors at the front give it this super aggressive and tall stance. That headlight with the dual beam just sets it apart from so many other engines. And then it has that big centipede PT tender. Such a cool looking engine. Some people don't like the Niagara because of the PT tender and just the way it looks, but I think it's so interesting. And a cool note about it in real life was it had a super high boiler pressure, and that allowed it to be a very powerful engine. And the whistle, in fact, had to be changed from the normal New York Central's whistle so that it could accommodate that high pressure of steam. I found that really interesting. And then behind it is an amazing set of KLine passenger cars in the 20th century paint scheme. This combo altogether looks really nice. And I've made this Century Club Lionel Niagara look a little better by restoring the wheels to a matte black paint, because from the factory they would chip off and they would look awful with chipped paint. And then I've also added LED lighting to this engine, beefed up the smoke unit, and installed better speed control. I installed the better speed control using parts from TRAINZ. That's TRAINZ with a Z. And speaking of TRAINZ, I got this Lionel Santa Fe 3751 Northern from them. If you'd like to buy amazing trains like this Northern or anything else, TRAINZ has tons of amazing products, engines, rolling stock, parts, layout supplies. They have all of it for you. at their website, www.trainz.com. And if you'd like to save $10 off your next order with them, make sure to use my code SIDSTRAINZ at checkout. Also use my affiliates link, www.trainz.com/SIDSTRAINZ. Your support is greatly appreciated. But this 3751 Northern is an amazing model. It is the TMCC version from the early 2000s, and it has amazing sounds, and of course is an excursion star. In real life, the 3751 still exists and sometimes still runs. It is truly an amazing model. And all of these Northerns just stick out in our bold engines. They are big, they are powerful, and they all have very unique looking styling to them. And that is truly what I think makes the Northern such a cool, interesting, big, and bold statement in the world of railroading. Northern. Big engines that make bold statements. What other Northerns are out there that I might have missed? Is there a certain type of Northern that is your favorite? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to think on the 484 Northern. Is there a different kind of train that might be more interesting or more bold than the 484 Northern? Let me know down in the comments. As always, I'd like to thank you for watching, and make sure to smash that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe and click the bell for notifications. I'm Sid, and I'll see you next time, guys.